So the war is still raging on between America and Iran. Well, America and Israel against Iran. And there's a lot of talk, especially on Fox News, CBS, about ground invasion, seizing an island. We've got a couple of clips to get into. We've got Douglas Macgregor first, and then Scott Ritter, both speaking on what would happen if they send troops. So we're going to get into this.
Production line, that's the first thing. Now, as far as what else can be done, ground troops, it is interesting that he didn't address it, because in recent days, you and I know that he has. He brought up that he was considering seizing Kharg Island. Of course, his great friend and supporter, Lindsey Graham, chimed in immediately and said, oh, yes, we've got to do that. That's the key. We've listened to General Wes Clark, whom I normally regard as highly intelligent and thoughtful, come on board and say, yeah, we're going to hit Kharg Island. That's the key to success. I haven't seen any evidence that it will make any difference at all, but that's what he's done. And then finally, that great man, General McKenzie, the architect of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, has come on board and said, yes, we should seize Kharg Island. We need to stand on Ukrainian soil, or excuse me, Iranian soil, and hold it as a bargaining chip. You know, Dan, this sort of stuff is just incredible. First of all, what does anybody think is going to happen if we try to move into southern Iran or in the Persian Gulf? They're going to be hit with everything you can imagine from every angle. You've got a country the size of Western Europe, 93 million people, and hundreds of places from which they can launch unmanned things like the Shahad missile, the Shahad drones, or various kinds of theater ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. Those are going to take a terrible toll. If we have people sitting on this real estate, they're sitting ducks. What are they going to do? Are they going to use the island as a lily pad? You know, this is a sort of marine idea for the Pacific. Well, the problem is it doesn't work because a lily pad can be annihilated. But then you go down to Chabahar. That's come up for discussion too. Oh, let's take Chabahar. That's a city. Well, I think the Iranians are a lot like the Russians were when they retreated in front of Napoleon Bonaparte. They destroyed everything. They destroyed everything, leaving nothing for the French. They tried to do the same thing in World War II as the Germans advanced into the Soviet Union. The Soviets did not quite as successful as the Tsar was. But my point is, why would the Iranians sit there and say, okay, fine, let's bargain now. You're sitting on top of Chabahar. And then finally, once you've gotten somebody there, assuming they survive, what are they going to do? You know, where's this great ground force? How do you get somewhere? Oh, we're going to climb into V-22s and helicopters. Well, I'm sure that'll work very well. What did we see in Isfahan? We saw a very vulnerable special aircraft shot to pieces. Come on, this is different. This is a real war. Either fish or cut bait. And he doesn't want to cut bait. He keeps hooking up new worms to the hook and throwing them overboard, thinking that eventually the fish is going to give up. It's not going to happen.
And this is the thing, like, the likes of Douglas Macgregor, by the way, he's a retired US Army officer, decorated combat veteran, from 76 till 2004. Like, he's been in the game, bro. He's been in the game. He knows what he's talking about, like. Best known for commanding the 2nd Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment in the Battle of 73 Easting during the 91 Gulf War. And then he was Chief of Strategic Planning for NATO during the Kosovo campaign. Like, he knows what he's talking about, like. You know, this is the thing, like, you hear the people parroting on Fox News, the BBC, talking about, oh yeah, they're just going to go and take Kharg Island. Oh, America are winning the war. It's like, we're like, what are you? I just don't understand how they can get away with lying so much about this. Like, I'm just going to get into this one. Obviously, Scott Ritter breaks down the same subject. You'll see what I mean. And again, Scott Ritter. 2 seconds, sorry about that. We'll get there. Yeah. Scott Ritter, Special Marine Corps, Special Intelligence for the Marines. And he was a weapons inspector, like. He went in for US ENCOM, doing the disarmament of weapons of mass destruction for Saddam Hussein. Like, these people know their stuff, like Like, honestly. And we're hearing from people on Fox News, the BBC, talking about, oh yeah, we're going to do this, that, and other. When anyone with any military experience knows it can't be done. Like, we're getting to what Scott says about the same thing about invading Kharg Island.
On President Trump to finish the job. What does that mean exactly, and what steps should he be taking to make sure this is not drawn out and that he can actually not have to take off the blockade, put it back on again, and be victorious in the end against the regime?
Yeah, when you look at it, the American people don't like tit for tat. You go in with half measures. They want to finish this job, completely finish it. And I think you can do it not just by kinetic action, which, I mean, we can bomb all the bridges we want or power plants we want, but it just hurts the Iranian people. What you can do, and I've said it repeatedly on air, is what you can do is take a couple of strategic targets. One, you can take Kharg Island. That's 80% of their economy, 90% of it. And you control it like we control your house. I know that means boots on the ground and a strategic target, but it's defendable. The island's 16 miles offshore. You can then hold it. You can open up the strait. You can take the islands in the Strait of Hormuz as well with your marine amphibious groups out there. You can take Lanark Island. You can take Geisham Island. You can take them all to cut down basically their ability to basically interdict the Gulf and the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. And I think we can open the strait. I think we can escort those vehicles through. And that's the thing they're counting on, that they can continue to hold the Strait of Hormuz. I think once we break that deadlock and ships are moving, then I think their ability to influence the action is gone.
Yeah, here is one of the part of the question is, Scott, because all of these attacks, if you look at the attacks, the targets in the southern part of Iran, in the western part of Iran, those people who are in favor of invasion or doing something underground, they're saying that the United States, the whole campaign is trying to diminish or reduce the Iranian capabilities in the southern and in the western parts. So as soon as they're not that powerful, the United States can do something in those regions. And here you've heard what General Keith Kellogg said. What is your take on that?
What a stupid man, a fundamentally ignorant man. We just start with logistics. Logistics drives everything. Iran will be operating off our interior lines of communications, and the United States will be operating off of exterior lines of communications. Our lines of communication, that means the ability to supply and sustain whatever we're doing, is thousands of miles long. Iran's is whatever it takes to get to whatever depot that exists in there. 16 miles, the separation. Well, I mean, last time I checked the range of Iranian missiles, that means they have a tremendous amount of depth, strategic depth, to allow them to continuous bombardment of this place. He throws around the terms like Marine Amphibious Ready Groups as if, wow, that means something. It's 2 battalion landing teams, 2 battalions. When we did amphibious assaults in World War II, we had Red Beach 1, Red Beach 2, Red Beach 3, Red being a regiment, 3 battalions online, and we have green and, move on. Regimental landing teams, part of a division going ashore. This is 1 battalion going in. Keith Kellogg would do well to study that which he talks about. The last time we tried to do a forcible entry by battalion on an island, Grenada, I guess you could say, oh, that was a success. Let's say an island that was defended by competent defenders was Koh Tang Island in May of 1975. And the battalion landing team that went across got beat. We landed. We secured 2 beachheads, 3 if you count 1 desperate beachhead that was temporarily there because the helicopter got shot down and the crew formed a perimeter, and that became a beachhead until they got evacuated. Then we had to evacuate the one because it was indefensible. The third one was about to get overrun. We had to evacuate them. We left 3 Marines behind who got captured and executed. That's like a great outcome compared to what could happen at Kharg Island, where we could lose the entire battalion. And then what do we reinforce them with, Keith? Put the Marines on the ground. It's a battalion, Keith. 500, 600 Marines. We can reinforce them with and get them up to 800 maybe. Then what? They're going to start to die, Keith. Where's the reserves? The second BLT? But I thought you said you want to take Kharg Island and some other islands. Are you just going to generate battalion landing teams? Let's just create them out of thin air. Can't do that, Keith. That's not how it works. We got 2 right now. Now, you're going to bring in some paratroopers? Airborne! Geronimo! Jump out of the airplane and die. Let's say they land on the ground. At least the Marines come in with some sort of logistics sustainability. They have a logistics unit that is attached to the MU. Paratroopers, yay! They land on the ground. They got what they brought with them, which ain't much. They shoot through their basic load. What, bring in more stuff and drop it to them? But how can you if you're getting shot down? I mean, let's go to Kharg Island. 8 out of the 11 helicopters that went in on the initial wave either shot down, destroyed, or damaged so bad they couldn't be brought into action. 8 out of 11. What's Keith Kellogg talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking. Let me make it as clear as possible. If we could have taken Kharg Island, we would have taken Kharg Island. But we didn't take Kharg Island because we can't take Kharg Island. No matter how much Wesley Clark or Pete McKenzie or Keith Kellogg want to sit there and talk about drawing big arrows on the map, it ain't going to happen. If it could have happened, it would have happened. The other thing I want to talk about is just reality. We being the United States of America, don't have that much military force anymore. The day of generating 750,000 troops for Desert Storm, because that's what we generated to do Desert Storm, is over. The day of generating 250,000 troops for Operation Iraqi Freedom was called Operation Iraqi Liberation, but then people went, wait, that's oil. We're not fighting for oil. We'll fight for oif. And so we did that. We can't do that. We don't have the force structure anymore. We struggle to get 5,000 soldiers ginned up to send to Europe as part of the rotational brigades. Our military isn't designed to be expeditionary in nature. We have some units that can do some expeditionary moves, but to get our military up to speed, we still have a situation where our divisions, I think it's 1/3 and sometimes more of our division are reserve or National Guard forces that have to be spun up, trained up, and then attached. There's a reason why in Desert Storm we didn't have any Army National Guard or Army Reserve units of brigade-sized forces fighting because they couldn't get spun up. The Marines did because we trained for that all the time. But now if we want to get people up, we're going to have to take a lot of time to get units mobilized, put together, trained up, and brought in. How do we deploy them? With what resources? Desert Storm, we flowed in troops by aircraft. They landed at permissive airfields. Take a look at what's happening right now. Iran can shut down airfields. You really think we're just going to be flying in C-117 or C-17s in to discharge tens of thousands of troops on an airfield that's getting bombarded by missiles? No. So where do we land them? You have to land them further away, which means you now have to bring them closer. That's a logistical problem. You have to build up the logistics for this. But that's also susceptible to being attacked by Iranian forces. Ports. There's not going to be a port operating normally. First of all, half the ports we used were inside the Persian Gulf. You had to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get to those ports. That's not going to happen. The ports that we'll go into will be subjected to attacks. General Berger, the former commandant of the Marine Corps, recognized this in 2019. I think when he issued his, might have been after that, issued his commandant's guidance that said we can't accomplish the missions given to us by the Secretary of Defense because we are married to a legacy system that is no longer sustainable given the realities of modern warfare. That we put all our Marines, all our eggs in one basket, the USS Tripoli or whatever, and we sail it towards the enemy shores. And then normally we park it off, and then the Marines would disembark and land the landing team, and off they go, and they seize the beach. But now as they approach, they're not even going to get to the point where they start discharging their Amtraks. They're going to get hit by a missile, sunk, and we lose all the Marines. This is the reality. The reality is we can't do this. The last time Donald Trump thought about ginning up this kind of forces was in 2019 or 20 when the Global Hawk was shot down, the drone. And he said, I'm going to bomb those Iranian air defense systems. And the Pentagon went, you do that, and they're going to escalate by shelling. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to do this. Then they're going to do this. They're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. No, sorry, sir, you can't take these. We don't have the force. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. That's sort of the funny thing. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. He said, what will it take to take? We're going to have to mobilize 190 to 250,000 troops. And it's going to take 9 months to a year and a half to do that. Wow, maybe it's not worth it. we still have that problem. And then we're not just talking about the strait, we're talking about an even bigger problem. So we'd have to mobilize 500,000 Americans to do this job. Keith Kellogg, how are we going to do that? Where are they coming from, Keith? Because I just do the math. We don't have them.
And they don't have them. They don't have the troops. That's the problem here in the West. Like, we don't, like the UK, our army. You think what's going to happen if Russia finally, with Putin finally loses patience? And like some people are like, oh, well, Scott, he's a Russian asset, blah, blah, blah. 12 years. 12 years he was in the Marine Corps, Special Intelligence, Operation Desert Storm. Like, these people know their stuff, man. These are the ones being shunned by mainstream media because they just want you to swallow the narrative that the likes of the BBC and Fox News in America. How many times has Trump said he's won this? How many times has he said the straits are open? They're bombing the straits as we speak. Missiles going off all over the region. For what? Wake up, like. But that's it for this one anyway.